Hello everyone. This is the second time of the broadcasting of Hong Kong Japan orthopedic meeting focused on the Oxford knee. So the first one I told about the tibia cutting level, its tips and tricks. The second one is medial lateral position of the tibia and the femur component. This is another benefit of the microplasty set. So in the manual, the definition of ML portion of the femur component is should be set at the center of the medial femoral condyle. So in the manual, the femoral drill guide must lie in the center of the medial condyle. That is done by ensure the medial and lateral borders adjacent to 6-meter hole of the femoral drill guide and equal distance from the condyle edge. So it means firstly, you should draw the line, vertical line, at the center of the medial femoral condyle, and it can be confirmed by looking into the 6-millimeter hole. Looking through this hole, you can see that this line previously you drawn. Then you make sure this the guided place at the center of the medial condyle. But in fact, on the contrary, in the microplasty set, it's the femoral dory guide is also defined by the vertical cutting plane of the tibia and defines the embryo portion of the femoral component. So this dory guide is essential to decide the femoral component. So the microplasty to the set is on the condition that the plate of the drill guide and the surface of the drill guide is touch the vertical cutting plane here of the tibia. Then, if you make the femur drill guide following the femoral drill guide position, then automatically the femoral component to place the best position to create the 1 millimeter space between the bearing and the lateral wall of the tibia component. This is very difficult, but very important because this bearing, if the bearing hit the lateral wall, that can cause the dislocation of the bearing or wear of the bearing. In contrast, if the distance between the lateral wall and bearing is too much, the bearing can rotate and can cause the dislocation of the bearings. Ideally, this space, 1 millimeter space, should be maintained throughout the knee motion from the full extension to the full flexion. So in this condition, this plate of the microplasty drill guide touch to the lateral cutting surface of the tibia bone. Then we can make the 1 millimeter space. You should remember this one. So this figure indicates this. This is the center of the femoral drill guide. This is the center of the femoral component. In this condition, this is the lateral edge of the tibia femoral drill guide, and this is correspond to the vertical cutting level of the tibia. Then, in this condition, 1 millimeter space is created between the lateral wall of the tibia component and the mobile bearing. So, in fact, there's two standards. So one standard is this drill guide should be placed at the center of the medial femoral condyle. Another one is to set the lateral edge of this plate of the femoral delivery guide to the vertical wall of the tibial cutting plane. But sometimes it is same, but sometimes it is different. It is a problem. So we should take into account two standards: center and touch here to the vertical cutting plane. In addition, there is some trick. If in this condition, if you insert the femoral delivery guide and touch this plane to the tibial vertical cutting plane, then proper delivery guide hole will be created. However, to set this delivery guide, we need to insert iron rod. Then, if we insert iron rod, then patella can be shifted laterally like this. Then, in the condition that the patella shift laterally, then the patella will pull tibia laterally. As a result, the setting of the femoral delivery guide can be shifted laterally. In this condition, femoral component can be set medially. That can easily cause the hitting of the bearing at the lateral wall of the tibial tray. That can cause dislocation or excessive wear due to the impinge between the metal and the polyethylene. That should be avoided. So sometimes the femoral delivery guide is set like this because of some reasons. Anyway, you should check if this plane is touched to the lateral wall. Otherwise, so there is a big space between the cutting plane and this delivery guide. The placement can be too medial. That can cause the separation of the mobile bearing and the vertical wall or the tibial tray. That is also can cause the dislocation. Because jumping height, that means the height difference from the lowest point of bearing to the highest point of each side. So to the anterior side, the anterior edge is 5 millimeter higher than the lowest point, thinnest point of this bearing, and the posterior one is 3 millimeter higher. And but the both sides is only the 2 millimeter higher than the lowest point of the bearings. So if there is enough space, too big space between bearing and lateral wall, the bearing can rotate 90 degrees. In this condition, this bearing can dislocate easily because the only 2 millimeter objective height in this situation. So 2 millimeter can open in some condition, for example, valgus stress or deflection. So not too close, but not too far. It is very difficult. So ideally, to maintain the 1 millimeter space throughout the motion, it is very important. But it's quite difficult because to achieve this, we should make the tibial side cutting guide, tibial setting bone, tibial vertical osteotomy in the proper position, proper impaired position, and proper direction. because this mobile bearing can move anteriorly and posteriorly in flexion and extension. So this line is very important. So tibia can rotate externally in the terminal extension. We call it a screw home movement. In contrast, in the deep flexion, tibia can rotate internally. We call it a medial pivot motion. So we should take into account. But in our experience, if we cut the tibia aiming to the ASIS, medial lateral anterior superior spine, it is the best way, best direction to achieve this. In the fixed bearings, so the tibial cutting vertical cut should be aimed to the femoral head center, but I believe it is too externally rotated because we should take into account the screw home movement. If the tibia rotates externally in the terminal extension of the tibia of the knee, so the distance from lateral wall and bearing can be enlarged. To avoid this, the cut should be internally rotated. Maybe this should be the one reason. As Dr. Inu reported is the same thing. Once we insert iron rod and push the tibia laterally, the tibia can move laterally, and eventually this femoral drill guide can be set to mid lateral. Then in this condition, this bearing can hit lateral wall of the tibia. That can cause the fracture. I measured the effect of rod and sometimes the patellar dislocation. So if without a rod compared to the without a rod, so if we insert a rod, this tibia can shift approximately 1 millimeter laterally. And if patella is completely dislocated laterally, the distance should be 1.5 millimeter. So we need to keep the 1 millimeter space in this condition between the lower plate of the tibial cutting guide and vertical cutting wall. Okay, this is the end of my second talk. So this is a take home. You should make sure that both the tibial drill guide should be set at the center of the medial condyle. In the same time, the lower plate of the femur drill guide can touch to the lateral cutting surface. So sometimes it is different. They are different. So we should adjust the size. Ideally, we need 1 millimeter or 2 millimeter space between the lower plate and the vertical cutting plane. That should be ideal to make the enough proper femoral drill guide set. And we should take into account to the horizontal cut is sometimes too high and sometimes too low. If gap is too tight, inserting the spoon gauge, or spoon gauge is inserted inclined medially. So after the G clamp, the medial femoral condyle can be lifted up. And on this condition, the MCL is abnormally extended, abnormally stretched. So in this condition, the tibia cutting level tend to be higher. In contrast, if the medial gap is too loose, the cutting plane tends to be low. So in this condition, lift up the spoon gauge and fix the block, or use the 2 millimeter or 3 millimeter spoon gauge. Okay, that's all. Thank you. See you again.